One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. Welcome back to the show, and what a show we have for you tonight. Oh, yes, we've got exclusive Captain Dan tracks, because it's Talk Like a Pirate Day, yar! Yes, I won't be talking like a pirate, because you have no idea how much that does your throat in. I mean, really, my throat's not feeling too great this week. I'm sure I'll survive, but really, talking like that for 90 minutes? You gotta be kidding me. So yeah, 2 new Captain Dan tracks coming up a little bit later on, exclusively on WoW Radio. Oh yes, indeed. What else have we got? We're going to be discussing vehicles in Wrath of the Lich King. Yes, indeed. There are no trucks in World of Warcraft. Yet. Also, we'll be talking about the eternal homogenization problem. And no, that's not the same as the eternal pasteurization problem that the Taurens seem to have. This is the eternal homogenization problem. And is balancing killing variety? Certainly a possibility. We're going to think about that a little bit later on. Also, heirloom items. You've heard about heirloom items already, but I have a new theory for you. I have a new theory that they're introducing a brand new game mode. Yes, indeed, a new way to play, and I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the show. And towards the end of the show, indeed at the end of the show, we will be doing one thing and one thing alone, and that is this. It's the illusion of choice. Yes. Illusion of choice. You get to email in for the last topic of the show. I'm actually going to try and expand the amount of content I've got on my show this week. I decided, hey, I was listening back to my show archives, as I usually do, to try and, pick fault with myself. And I'm like, it's funny, there only seems to be like 65 minutes of spoken content in this 90-minute show. So what about if we throw in an entire new section of speech? Yes. So I'm going to go instead from 65 minutes of content to 83 minutes of content, which leaves me a grand total of 7 minutes to play music in. Fun. We'll see how that one works out. It's going to be really short tracks. I'm going to try and squeeze it in and see what happens. Let's see how it goes. So yeah, Illusion of Choice. If you want to email in a topic for the Illusion of Choice, you can do so. Email themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com. And if I decide to choose your topic, yes, it is an illusion of choice, and I will do your topic towards the end of the show. And of course, last but not least, we'll cap off the show with our usual shout-outs. Coming up this week as well, an epic-length Nubcake News, clocking in at 7 minutes, which would, I believe, make it the longest one I've ever done. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. We shall see, we shall see. Now, loads of stuff to cram into the show, so there's absolutely no point in wasting any time, so... Mail time.
That sounds like... It's mail time! Here's the mail.
It never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Oh yeah, it is the mail time, folks. It's the time of the week where we pick up the mailbag, rummage inside, and get bitten by a bear trap that someone sent in there as a joke. That was mean! Do you understand? That could have really hurt somebody. You guys are terrible. The first mail comes in this week from someone who has one of the best names I've ever seen. It's Silas Lou... Hang on, I've got to start this. Foreign names are not my speciality, I must say. I have trouble saying my own name, let alone this one. Was it Silas Louis Heiberg? Yeah, it sounds like a Nazi scientist. Nazi science! Yes. Okay, I've broken Godwin's about 5 minutes into the show. That's terrible. Now, he says... It's quite a long one, so I'm going to try and cut it down a little bit. He says, Dear TB, you sexy thing. Oh, good lord, no. I do not want to work out. Not with you, anyway. I present to you this amazingly godlike subject of agony and eternal death that you would be insane to pass on. Okay. For you to rant about during our next Boo Peas of Awesome. Boo Please. Hosted by Casper the Friendly Ghost. We had him in earlier, Well, actually, it can wait a little bit, because first of all, I want you to thank you for being so incredibly, compliments, whatever. On to the subject of Doom. The rumor about Death Knights that will be released in Content Patch 3.0.2. Good lord. Yesterday, an official forum poster posted this, seeking a blue response. Where I work, there are a bunch of World of Warcraft players now all saying a blue said that the Death Knights will be released before the expansion comes out, to allow people who want to play Death Knights to level them to 70. But when the expansion comes out, the Death Knight will be locked until they get the expansion. I don't know if this is true or false. Maybe you can help me out. That is as basic of a question as you can ask. The answer should be simple, yet it wasn't. Big gasp here for maximum dramatic effect. Now, Nethera posted something. Yes, posted a reply to this, indeed. And it is rather long, needless to say. At least, in fact, it is so long that the person who sent it to me didn't actually link me to it. Thanks! I mean, this thread is 26 pages long. I clicked the link. It's not there! Ugh, good lord. Oh well, never mind. But yeah, so there's rumours on the internet. And he says, the response was a link to the original announcement of content patch 3.0.2 and some of the content being released in it. What you didn't see was a no, or that rumour is stupid, or even a maybe. So, what can we make of this? Well, apparently DeathKnight.info is having a lengthy discussion on their forums about this, but what do you think? Is it likely or right out? If you ask me, it would make sense. Maybe allow people who pre-ordered Wrath of the Lich King to roll a Death Knight before the expansion hits live realms and level it to 70 in advance, so that they can ready themselves for Northrend come the expansion. Looking through the files found in Content Patch 3.0.2, there is no such thing as a playable Death Knight to be found, but it only takes a small 40 megabyte patch containing the Death Knight for Blizzard to put it through. Oh, and last night Ghostcrawler announced the changes to Death Knights that we will find in the next beta build. And being a bit Death Knight fanatic and theory crafter myself, I'll go out and say, with that build, Death Knights will be more balanced and complete than ever. High five, and lots of nah, that's gay. And that's from The Jazz. 70 Priest, Horde, Talvanar EU. Right, okay. Yeah, there are rumours on the internet, and I'll tell you what other rumours I've got, is that this dog is eating a screwdriver. So I am going to go and stop the dog from eating the screwdriver. I'm going to continue to talk as I walk across the room, and I spot the dog over here. I roll a d20 and take this back. That's actually not a screwdriver at all. That's a spoon! Why did it have a spoon? Of all things, why a spoon? At least, you know, I could have dealt with a screwdriver, but a spoon? Come on! I was fed that dog 15 minutes ago, seriously. How do you hunters cope? Really? How? Anyway, let's get back on this. The chances of Death Knight coming before Wrath... probably about a month or two ago I'd have said no way, but seeing what the kind of concessions that Blizzard are making to kind of please their player base right now, I think it's entirely feasible that that might end up happening. I mean, the reason that I would say that they would do that, aside from keeping people playing and getting people to pre-order the title, which to be honest, they don't need to encourage people to do that. People are going to do it anyway. You don't really have a choice but to buy Wrath if you actually want to progress past level 70, and let's face it, all level 70 content is pretty much done now, so it's not like anyone's going to hang around. It reminds me of the argument that somebody made back before TBC was launched, that, yeah, there'll be a group of people that won't buy the expansion because they prefer to keep doing level 60 content. Yeah, about 7 of them. You know, really. We saw how well that worked out. So, yeah. I don't know, really. I really honestly do not know. It wouldn't surprise me after the PvP to PvE, the PvE to PvP, never get that right. PvE to PvP transfers and the whole recruit a friend thing, maybe. Obviously with Warhammer coming out as well, they might. I don't know, it just seems kind of odd, really. Though I can see why it would work. I mean, let's face it. All the Death Knights all rolling on exactly the same day and doing all of this stuff and starting at level 55, which means, of course, they're behind the curve for the Raiders, so the hardcore raiding guilds wanting their Death Knights going to have to wait for them to level an extra 15 levels. It's possible. I mean, I'm not sure that they will do it, because it seems very, very odd to say, hey, here's the biggest feature of our expansion, and we're going to give it to you before that. But then, having said that, they're already giving us half of those features anyway in the 3.0 content patch. And you know what that makes me think? It does make me think that, to be honest, Wrath is not going to launch on the date that they think it is. Right? Because why else would they give us all that content? If they weren't a little bit worried that, hey, it's not going to come out in November and people can't wait, people are going to be tempted by other games, so let's give them some extra content to play with in the meantime. And funnily enough, half of that was like the selling points of the expansions. I mean, they were kind of frivolous, you know, barbershops, Stormwind Harbour, the new talents, all that kind of thing. Oh, you know, most of that was frivolous. Of course, the new talents really isn't, but I suppose you could look at it another way, that they're trying to shake down the content in a way that the beta testers can't. You know, throw all the content out to 10 million people and suddenly they realise what 10,000 can't. You know, maybe, maybe not. We'll see. I mean, I think the talents, there's probably a very good argument to say that the talents are going out for that reason. Because, hey, they want to check that everything is being balanced, particularly from a PvP perspective, because that ain't been happening much in the test realms, particularly at level 80. There hasn't been a lot of PvP going on, mainly because the battlegrounds and arenas haven't worked. So very few people have been testing PvP, and it's all been about, let's go test Nax, let's go do the level 80s, let's do some heroics and stuff like that. So that could be the reason. Well, there's a theory for you. We'll see. Now, I have one more mail, and this one is from David Fielding, level 70 Shaman on Burning Blade EU, and he says this: Hi TB, after playing WoW for a week, how do you think it compares to WoW, and do you think you'll be quitting WoW for it? Short and sweet. Well, this is kind of the last topic that I really want to do on WoW, because I do think talking about WoW is relevant to WoW players, because it's always interesting to see what the competition is doing, and this is the first, in my opinion, the first legitimate competition to WoW, because it's a game with potential mass appeal. It's got a really good background story behind it, it's got a very good universe to back it up, and a good license, and it's pretty much as user-friendly as WoW from the start. There's a couple of things which are a little bit more complicated, but I had no problem really getting into the game. So I'll give you my final thoughts on this and round it off and just say, I think, to be brutally honest, and I'll justify this in a minute, that I'm going to be playing both. I think that's pretty much a certainty now. After playing the game for a week, I've come to the conclusion that, yes, it's a very well fleshed out game, it's very well put together, it's generally bug-free, way more so than WoW was on launch, but then again, it's had a lot of time, it's 4 years on from WoW launch, so it can't really be that major, to actually release a game that isn't as buggy as WoW was on launch. The end game is already clear, which is something that WoW really never had. It's clear that once you get to level 40, the tier 4 content, as they call it, what you're going to be doing is city raiding and keep sieging, and you're going to also be doing the instances in your opponent's cities when you raise them and do all this other stuff. So it's a PvP endgame rather than a PvE endgame. It's like you take Lake Wintergrasp and expand that to an entire game spread across multiple zones with a bunch of quests and all this other functionality, put in battlegrounds, and then say, well, if you beat this, we will give you access to extra instances. Then you pretty much got WoW there in a little nutshell. What I've found with WoW is that the leveling is made a lot... It's not as fast by any stretch as WoW. It is a lot slower, and it can be a little bit tedious if you just play it for a PvE game, and I think that's its weakness. It's not a great PvE game. The quests, you'd kind of do the same stuff. It does have public questing, which is very, very good, but everything gets spiced up by the PvP, and you can start PvPing from level 1 in so-called scenario battlegrounds, which you can access very readily from a queue screen. Once you've gone in there the first time and done the quest, you get a little queue button up the top of your minimap, and you can queue for a battleground wherever you are. So what you do is you queue for your battleground, you go and do some questing. It's not like you do in WoW, where if you try and do anything and you have to leave a city in order to do that, you then get nailed straight back down to the city as soon as the battleground finishes. That's not what happens. You can run around and do whatever and go back into the battleground, and it's all fine and dandy and awesome, and you won't have a problem with it. So it's a legitimate style of play. You do a couple of quests, you do a BG, you do a couple of quests, you do a BG, and yes, you do gain XP from battlegrounds. It synergizes quite well, and I'm pretty impressed with the way that it works. The PvP is good. It needs balancing. It's certainly having some balancing issues, as anyone that's come up against a bright wizard will clearly attest. And I'm playing a Squig Herder, and my Squig Herder can't do jack in PvP at rank 10. It really can't. It is absolutely atrocious. I'm thinking of going down the path of stabbing, which allows me to don a giant squig, be eaten by this giant battle squig, and run around. It's kind of like mixing a druid with a hunter. You can shapeshift into a melee form, and then use your squig as a ranged pet instead of the other way around. It's kind of interesting, although at rank 10 it tends to get me killed horribly. It's still funny, though. A giant 8-foot-tall bouncing orange squig going, nah, nom, nom, nom. That's great. That's kind of funny and amusing. So I think the end game is going to require less organization and less scheduling, and that's the kind of nice thing about it. I imagine there will be some scheduled raiding of cities going on, but I think that a lot of it is going to be spontaneous. It's going to be like, hey guys, shout it out on MSN, shout it out on your IMs, your Ventrilo servers, your guild forums, saying we're going to go raid the castle now, or we're going to go raid this keep, we're going to go raid this city, and you just jump on and do it. Whereas in WoW, it's more of a case of you have to be somewhere at a specific time. So I think they will mesh rather well together, and I intend to play both, at least until as long as I'm actually enjoying both. I think that WoW is going to satisfy my raid needs quite nicely. That's what WoW's always been great at, and I really don't see why so many people say otherwise. Raiding is the best part of WoW. It's the most content-rich feature. There's way more design and effort goes into that than anything else in the game. PvP is a mere side game more than anything. It's it's a novelty. Some people take it seriously, but I'll be brutally honest, guys. If you like PvP, that's great. But do you really think it's a fully fleshed out system? Because to be brutally honest, you want to look at WoW to see what's a fully fleshed out system. Indeed, look at any other MMO that's PvP orientated, EVE Online, anything like that, Anarchy Online. Look at Star Wars Galaxies and look at PvP. You'll see that it's a bigger game. It's a more dynamic game that actually affects the world. It's not a glorified series of gladiatorial contests, and death matches and capture the flag, which is exactly what WoW is. Not a bad thing. I'm not going to state that it is unequivocally a bad thing. It's just WoW does it better because WoW had it built into the game from the get-go. Now, I don't know if they had the idea of raiding built into the game from WoW's get-go, but they certainly jumped on the idea quite nicely. You can see the evolution, rapid evolution from Onyxia through Molten Core, through then Blackwing Lair, AQ40, then Zul'Gurub and Naxxramas and all that kind of thing. And you'll see that, they did a really good job, and they're evolving that constantly, and the raiding is becoming really interesting. So that's certainly what I'll be playing WoW for. So yeah, anyone that's thinking about quitting WoW for war, I would say, are you really into PvP? Because if you are, then maybe you might. Maybe you might go to war, and that's what's going to happen, really. It's a better PvP game, unequivocally. But if you like raiding, then this ain't going to be the game for you. Let's face it. If you're like me and you like both, but you weren't a fan of the PvP in WoW, then yeah, play both, have fun, why not? Now, after the break, I'm going to be announcing a special contest that we actually have coming up for you. Yes, indeed, another contest. We give away so much stuff on the station these days. Now, but first, this is a new Captain Dan track. Captain Dan, big friend of the station, awesome guy. It's called Seas to the Streets, pre-release, and it's from his forthcoming brand new album. My name is Total Biscuit, this is Blue Please, only here on WoW Radio. Enjoy.